for, for the tens of people who might be watching me at this point, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Lacy Garbar, and I am a clarinetist and teacher here in the Chicago suburbs. I live in Naperville, and I teach privately in four high schools. And I have, well, normally I would have students come to my home on Saturdays. Before the pandemic, now I'm doing everything on Skype. So there's really no differentiation right now as to who goes where. So yeah, and I have 2 kids and a husband. I guess you could say I have a 3rd kid. Well, the old joke goes. Yeah, just living the life.
Yeah, well, that's something I think. I'm certainly interested in talking about. I'm sure our audience is curious too how businesses like ours are coping with the restrictions of doing business. So,
I just recorded. Sorry to interrupt. The orchestra that I play with, the New Philharmonic, we just recorded 4 concerts.
Oh wow!
Outside, wearing PPE. It was interesting.
How did that work? I mean, was it? I'm always concerned about like wind and God knows acoustics outside can be a little hairy, but
yeah, they did a really good job with the audio stuff. They had it was at the McAnich Arts Center. They have an outdoor pavilion, and so we utilized that pavilion, and all of the wind players, like the clarinets and the oboes, we all had bags over our instruments with holes in the sides for our hands, and what do you call it, like a cinch?
Oh yeah, a little drawstring or something.
Yeah, exactly, with the little like knobby thingy to hold it shut at the top, and it didn't really seem to affect sound, but it was it took some getting used to.
I'd imagine, yeah.
Yeah, with turning pages and trying to get my hand back in, because the holes are like elastic, so that they fit tight, like around your wrist. And so trying to figure out how to maneuver that and turn pages quickly. So I just had to adapt by, taking my practice copies and just making stuff like.
Right, the big unipage.
Yeah, exactly. So to minimize page turns as much as I could. And I also have that comb and thumb rest, the robo arm.
Yeah.
And so switching that back and forth with the thing, I'd have to like find the hole and like pull it over and yeah. So thank goodness, there was time in between and there weren't any like fast changes or anything like that. Sorry, let me mute my phone. Technology. Okay. And all the brass players, they had, or at least the horn players behind me, they had these masks that had these flaps so that they could get the mouthpiece up in there. And all of course, like the string players and the percussion, they were all wearing face masks, and they had us all spaced apart. And it was kind of interesting because I'd want to say something to the other clarinet player and be like, hey, Mary. And she's like looking at her music, and so she can't hear me because we're so far apart. I know. And like normally I'd be, I could just like, go like that and just poke her shoulder, but we're like 6-7 feet apart, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, it wasn't that important, I guess. We'll talk about it at break or whatever.
But it's nice to hear.
Interesting, but yeah.
Like people trying to adapt in some way or another and still perform, still create.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just very, very thankful for the creativity of our management, and the conductor for making it happen.
Mm.
Because they very easily could have just said, well, it's too hard, but they decided, like, okay, we're gonna figure this out, we're gonna make it work. And so we recorded all of our fall programming, and also our what we were going to be doing in January.
Mm.
We already pre-recorded all of it
Nice. Good.
while it was warm enough outside to be able to do it.
Right.
And it's going to be broadcast at the the original concert dates.
All right.
So
Just
the
on
first one is
YouTube or
already
something?
passed. Huh?
Just on YouTube or something, or some other
Um,
live streaming, or some other streaming platform?
so the McAnich Art Center is streaming it.
Okay.
So it's at themac.org. Yeah, and then you would just find the the links for the new Philharmonic, and yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll have that all down in the description afterwards.
Yeah.
Help each other out with our various performing.
Yeah, yeah, but that just seems like that's kind of it for now, like for
Yeah.
performing and stuff. Because once that was done, I'm just kind of like, okay, just gotta wait for the pandemic to be over now. It's like, okay, because none of the other, like other like places like seem to be really doing anything,
Yeah.
or
I play with West Suburban.
Mhm.
Usually they perform around Hinsdale or so, and they everyone's been kind of at a loss for exactly what we can do. And I don't know about your group, but ours has a significant amount of older performers, so
Yeah,
they're a little more afraid of transmission.
right. And you can't blame them. I mean,
Yeah. So I
people
mean,
have
there
to
was
do
some
what's
attempt
possible.
earlier to do some kind of recording. I wasn't able to be involved at the time, but
Yeah,
people, we got a lot of people thinking about it and trying to do something. So
right. Yeah, I know. It's a really tough call, and you don't want to put people at risk, but at the same time, if there are people who are, I guess, relatively younger and healthy who want to do something like this, that has the safety precautions put in place,
right.
then let it be an option, as long as it's within like standards.
Yeah.
And those who aren't comfortable, then let them sit out without future penalty or anything.
Right. Yeah. That's um
you know
I think I've talked to several other colleagues. We all kind of agree one way or another. This is
hmm
a time for people to kind of reflect on how we've done things before and how we need to adapt. Um,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
the old days of just kind of I think like we had this with our repertoire choice for years. Just the whatever the board decides,
Mhm.
and erring on the side of tradition versus maybe what draws an audience, or even
Right.
how
Mhm.
that's presented. Now it's like, well, we can't abide by tradition because because it's a health risk. So
Right.
do you want to move forward or not, and how do we do that? So
Yeah, but there's also that expression, adapt or die, right?
mm,
I mean, you have to adapt. I mean, it's kind of like, it's like Darwin,
yeah.
you have to adapt, and nothing ever stays the same. And I think if arts organizations can adapt, then they're more likely to survive. And the same as like musicians, as individuals, the more you can adapt, like the better you can survive.
Right.
I mean, because this whole thing has forced a lot of us to adapt, because I never taught over Zoom or Skype before March. I never even considered it.
Yeah.
I always taught in person. But the Skype and Zoom, that's all I've been doing since March. I haven't, I mean, like I've only had like one student that has, had lessons in person, but we do them in my backyard.
Right.
But I can't do that like all day, like every day, because my neighbors would be like, what the heck? But every once in a while when the weather's nice and stuff, I just taught her on Saturday afternoon because it was so beautiful outside. And we were outside in the leaves and like she was sitting like, I don't know, like 6 or 8 feet away from me or whatever, and I had a copy of the music she was playing, and so I didn't have to be like, oh,
yeah.
And so and we're outside, so, and we were apart, so that was good, and I got to play along with her. And which I haven't been able to do because we've been on Skype. And so, but now that the weather's turning, this is like the last warm day probably. Back to Skype.
Yeah, real autumn.
What's that?
Real autumn, where it's
right, exactly. Yeah, second summer has been with us. It's kind of nice. We went on a really epic bike ride the other day, which is it was great.
Well, I suppose, and I know I've talked to others about this. Like, if we're being forced to adapt, there's no better time than now because there's so many tools out there now to be able to do it. The internet has never been more capable and active, I think.
It's true.
So we'll see how it all develops. But I'm glad to see colleagues keeping active and maintaining their business even through all this.
I mean, what's the other option? I mean, find other work.
Go work at a grocery store or whatever else is left. I don't know. So if you want it, you have to find your way and fight to keep it. So
True.
But it's good to see. Cool. If you don't mind me digging a little deeper now, how did you get started in clarinet in the first place?
Well, so when I was little, my dad, he collected radios, and like he still collects them.
Well.
And so I would always play with the radios, and I would just kind of mess with them, and like it was kind of interesting to me, like how you could just turn the knob and you would get this, and then you go here, and then you get this, and then but I would always stop at the classical station, and then I just sit there and listen to it, right? And so my dad took note, and he took me to my first orchestra concert, and I guess I was probably like about 8, maybe my daughter's age. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I remember just sitting there the entire time, just like, I want to do that. I want to do that when I grow up. I don't know what instrument yet, but I want to do that. And then 5th grade rolled around, and band was offered, and I tried the clarinet, got a good sound out of it right away, and my aunt had played the clarinet, and I thought, well, okay, there we go. Seems like a logical choice, my aunt played it, so it must be good enough. And I could get a sound, like a good sound right away, so and that was it. And it just kind of, for me, it like the clarinet was always it was just like a duck to water, and like it just always really felt natural to me.
All right.
Yeah, it always like felt right. Because I played other instruments too. Like I played saxophone. I started in middle school and played it through high school, and I enjoyed saxophone. It just kind of gave variety, but it never really felt like home. And I also played the double bass for several years. It's quite a departure. And, you know, I gained like ability on it and stuff like that, but I was never really talented on that instrument. It never really felt like home.
Yeah.
You know, and so like when I was in college, I was just like, yeah, I'll chase one rabbit. That way I'll be more likely to catch it.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it doesn't clarinet doesn't dictate what kind of car I drive. So.
Right. Oh man, yeah. I remember the hassles of some of my string colleagues, especially if we had to perform internationally or something. Like, well, I guess we talk to somebody in the end country and see if we can get a loaner, or, you know, or pay for a seat on a plane for your cello or whatever.
I know
that was, now that you mention it, that's something I was always happy about, that I had a carry-on size instrument.
Something that comes apart and fits compactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you now? We've known each other for a while. I can't for the life of me remember where we first met or what the circumstances are. Do you remember it all?
Yes, I do. You substituted for me in my teaching while I took maternity leave.
Oh, that was the first? Okay, I do remember that. I appreciate the work, by the way. It's
of course. I appreciate you taking care of my kids. Yeah.
I'm always a little skittish on sub work like that. Like, I don't want to mess up or disrupt whatever the teacher's been trying to.
Oh, I know. Yeah, but you know, they loved you.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah, everyone that had you, because I had another one who took over some of my other ones, because I think I had too many, like, for you to be able to take all of them. Well, so I had to split it up, like, between you and someone else. And everyone that had you, they were like, "Oh, Frank is so awesome. Like, he's so cool." And
well, good.
You know,
I'm glad. I hope they learned something too. I mean, I appreciate the.
Yeah, but you know, I think it's also good for kids to get other perspectives as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know, you keep hearing the same thing from the same person.
Right.
You know, it kind of like goes in one ear and out the other. But then when someone else tells you that same thing, you're kind of like, oh yeah. You know, that's why I love solo ensemble contests too. Because usually like all the comments that they get are things that we talked about already.
Right. Yeah, I've had to fight the urge every once in a while to say I told you so.
I told you so. I know. I know it. Yes.
But no, that's important. I think I like, I mean, for all of its hassle, I kind of like the environment we have now, because I feel like we're more prone to connect with each other as professionals. Like, hey, you know, I've had this kid for however many years. Like, why don't you take a crack at him or her, and you know, let's see what they pick up. You know, I've talked to several university professors now, and that it's like everyone who's achieved a lot on the instrument seems to have gone to like many quality teachers to get their perspective and build their own, you know, their own concept.
Totally. Right. Right. It's like, well, you know, whenever I have a student who's learning a piece of music, especially something that's standard repertoire, you know, I tell them, you know, like, don't take everything that I say as gospel. You know, that's my interpretation. You know, listen to at least like 5 other recordings of it. And, you know, do like research. You know, you say, you know, you take like, you know how like when you write a paper and you get all your information from one source, they call it plagiarism. When you get it from several sources, they call it research, right? Or at least that's how it goes, right? And that way, you know, I say, you know, like, take the ideas that you like from one and, you know, leave the things that you don't necessarily like. And, you know, let that inform the things that you do, so that you can hear all these different ways of doing the same thing, you know, and so that you don't end up being like just some kind of like carbon copy robot of someone's performance, or, you know, or God forbid they just do what I do, like
Right.
verbatim. Not that I don't like my own interpretation, but
Sure.
I'm not in the, I'm not in the game of making little copies of myself. I want them to think for themselves.
Right. I was surprised how often I've encountered that kind of, the carbon copy mentality.
I don't like that.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I think when I was in high school, the guy to copy around here was Larry Combs. It's like, oh, like, well,
That's quite something to copy, though.
yeah, that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
but at some point you have to accept, like, he's him. Like, Larry's Larry.
Right.
Nobody's going to
He's
be
already taken.
Larry. Yeah.
Right. Be someone else because he's taken already.
Right.
Yeah.
And I the more, at least for me, the longer I study, it's like, who am I going to be? I'm learning a lot of great things from these other teachers, but
Right.
like, what do I want to do with the clarinet?
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, because you work with a lot of high school students, right? The I don't know if you've had to find a balance between, like, because you have to have some kind of techniques and standards that they need to abide by, but like but at the same time fostering their kind of artistic development, like, because you can't just sound like, you can't sound bad, but what does it mean to sound good?
I know there's this creativity, right? But there are also like parameters with, of good taste, and also just what's, like technically correct, like rhythmically and pitch wise, just like the standard things, right? Like the nuts and bolts, right? Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm kind of the mindset that I like to like basically kind of help my students learn how to think rather than just tell them what to think. Because I think it just, in the short term, yeah, it's kind of more of like a pain in the butt because I'm always trying to, like, ask like leading questions, to try to get them to kind of like get the wheels cranking and turning and stuff like that. So short term, it's like a little bit more like, but I think long term, it's a better approach.
Yeah,
Rather than just
definitely.
feeding them answers. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. It's definitely harder to go that route, but it you end up with a better person, let alone an artist, like a better person who's
right.
able to process for themselves.
Right. Well, I mean, if you go cheap, you get cheap. So yeah.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, seldomly anything that's worth doing is very seldom easy. And that's just kind of how it goes with most things. Most things that are worthwhile are not easy.
Yeah. I definitely agree. So this year aside, because it's been kind of an exceptional year, what's a good day at work for you?
Everyone's practiced. Everyone pays me on time.
That would be nice. Now, let's take an aside there, since you mentioned that. How is it? Because I'm sure there's a lot of studio teachers out there, private studio, or maybe like I did this for a while where I worked for a music store, and they have a certain, like, pay procedure.
Yeah, they have like a cut that they take.
Yeah. How do you manage it in your studio?
As far as what?
Like, is it just when a student walks in, they pay you there, or do you have any kind of other schedules or procedures for that to make sure that you're getting, you're getting compensated for your work?
So I when I have a new student sign up, I have like a contract that I make sure that I send to them, and that that they receive it, and like they don't have to return anything to me, but it says in there that continuation of lessons indicates agreement to these terms. And so I require payment for the whole month in advance at the first lesson of that month. And for absences, unless it's like they wake up sick that morning, you know, and they're not going to be in school, I just ask that, you know, they just text me as soon as they know that they're going to have to miss that day, because obviously they can't give 24 hours of notice if they wake up in the morning of a lesson with a sore throat. You know, I mean, life happens, right? But like if they have a conflict, like they have a dentist appointment that they've known about, you know, you gotta give me 24 hours notice. Don't be like canceling like 5 minutes before your lesson. You're like, oh my God, I forgot. Like, well, I can't use that time. I mean, I can practice, but I don't have to be here to practice. I can do that at home.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like, okay, well, you just paid me to be sitting here and practicing, you know, paid practice time. Okay. And I like to try to avoid that, because I like to have a butt in the seat, you know, because the brain attached to that butt is learning.
Right.
Right. And, you know, and plus it makes the day go by faster, you know, when it's boom, 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 you know. Yeah, so I think it's just pretty standard, you know, what I expect. I don't charge like for the whole semester or anything like that. But,
I don't, probably not as often in the music world, but I know my other life in martial arts, some schools like, okay, you're paying for 3 years up front. It's like you sign a 2 or 3 year contract, pay us, you know, X $1,000, and then if you happen to miss classes, like, oh well.
That's like too broad. I think month by month is good. At least it works for me. And I think, you know, it's enough of like a breakdown for parents too, so that they know how much they're spending each month, and it helps them to kind of like know where their money's going every month. Because, you know, people usually, you know, they look at their finances and they're like, okay, like what, you know, how much do we spend this month on this? How much do we spend this month on that? You know, at least that's, you know, how we do our finances, right? I think a lot of people do that too. I just think for me, it just makes more sense. And that way I can track, you know, how much I'm actually bringing in for that month. So it doesn't all like cross over and gets all mixed up and stuff. And it just makes it easier for us to track my income. So.
I in my studio, I follow the same thing, and my martial arts school too. We've gone to like some kind of monthly format like that. I think it seems to fit a lot of families well, and it makes it easy on everyone.
Well, in 203, because they teach at Naperville Central High School. Right. And so in 203, they're 203. The other schools they teach at are in 204. Or I also teach in 99 as well in Downers Grove. But in 203, they require all the payment to go through the district, and they charge by the quarter. So it's like 8 weeks.
Okay.
Like up front for the whole quarter. And so I have to like keep like you know, tabs on like who's had what lessons, what dates and stuff, and make sure that, you know, and so it's kind of like a little bit more of a pain, because I don't handle it,
right?
You know, because the students, they don't give me the money, they give it to the band secretary, who then turns it into the district, and then the district pays me. You know, so it's, I don't know, it seems a little bit more amorphous for me. It's kind of more like conceptual. Oh, I'm being paid, you know. You know, but like, but normally, you know, but when I have like that you know, like the student comes in, like the first lesson of the month, they hand me the check. I put it in my little, I have like a little like leather like folio thing, and you know, it fills up. It feels more concrete, and like I'm more in control of it, you know. So I prefer to collect it myself, but you know.
Yeah, policy is policy.
Yeah, exactly. And if I don't like it, I don't have to teach there. That's the way I look at it. So if I want to teach there, I have to agree to their policies, and that's fine. It's fine.
Sorry, my dogs are a little frustrated back here. I'm not sure what's going on.
That's all right. I'll be in here teaching, and my cat will come in, like it wants to be fed, and my student's like, "Is that your cat?" I'm like, "Yeah, he wants to be fed. Sorry."
So let me ask you this also, just kind of a personal thing. So, you have a cat? Do you have any other animals in the house?
No, just one cat.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to have two, but she passed a few years ago.
So the cats respond positively or like to the clarinet sound, or at least not, they don't freak out, or
No, my cat, he doesn't freak out. I mean, we've had him since he was like 10 weeks old, 12 weeks old, and so he's just used to it. My husband plays trumpet, and so that's like way louder than the clarinet. I mean, and usually like when my husband is playing, the cat just makes sure that he's not in the same room. But you know, like I'll be, you know, playing or teaching in here, and the cat will be like 6-7 feet away, laying in his cat bed, snoozing away, and he doesn't really seem to care. I think he's immune to it.
I think my dogs, well, this set now, they just kind of find their way out of the room, but my previous dog would like kind of whine at me regardless of where he was in the house. I don't know if that was like too much altissimo practice, or he just didn't like the sound. Maybe I just need to practice more. I don't. But
I think they're confused. It's like why is that sound coming out of that stick toy that you're holding?
Right.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how they conceive of it when they see that. But yeah, I was just curious. Animals and frequencies and things. But now, who all did you study with?
Well, in high school and undergraduate school, I studied with Mac Hinson at SIUE at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, and we went to like music festivals and stuff, and so I studied with the teachers at the music festivals as well. And then when I went to Northwestern, I studied with Russell Dagan.
Okay.
And bass clarinet with Lori Bloom. And then when I was at Northern, I studied with Greg Barrett.
Yeah, I spent a year there doing a certificate with him.
Yeah, I did a performer certificate there as well. Yeah, and I've taken lessons with Charlene Zimmerman and with Susan Warner, you know, after college. They're wonderful as well. Yeah,
it's nice. What are some core lessons you think you picked up from those teachers, like some real central kind of core lessons you might?
I would say I remember when I was at Northwestern and I just was like not really having like a really good playing day. And Mr. Dagan, and oh God bless him. I don't know if you've ever met him or not, but he's like this like
towering giant person.
Right, but like this teddy bear. Yeah. And he said, well, you know, whenever everybody has their bad playing days, and it happens, he says, what I do when I'm having a bad playing day. He said it's just go back to basics. Practice scales, practice arpeggios, scales and thirds, all that kind of stuff. So just basically kind of like, you know, whip out the Behrman book
Right.
or the Albert book or, you know, Stephen Nard, whatever your flavor is, you know, and just go back to your basics. And okay. And, but I've just found that to be really, really true. Is, you know, the stronger your fundamentals are, the stronger your playing is going to be. And the more free you're going to be expressive, to be musical, because you're not going to be spending so much of your mental energy, you know, futzing around with the key work and,
Right.
you know, the technical stuff. And yeah, so, and one thing that I'm like, just like personally, that I didn't really get this from any of my teachers, but it's a personal philosophy that I have, is that, well, in undergrad, I double majored in music theory composition and clarinet performance. So I have a theory degree as well, as performance degree for my bachelor's. And I really firmly believe that if you really understand theory, you know, not even like, you know, crazy, like advanced theory, just
Right.
basic theory concepts, right? It really helps your playing because you can actually like see and go, oh, I see what's going on. So you can see pattern, it jumps out at you more. And the better that you know those arpeggios just in your fingers from having just practiced them, like say from like the Closé book, you know, that
Yeah.
section, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Like, yeah. Then you see it in music and you just do it. It's like,
Right.
you don't have to keep relearning like a B diminished 7 arpeggio every time you see it in a piece of music. You don't have to keep relearning it because you already know it.
Yeah.
But through it, right? You just follow like the rhythm and like however up and down it goes, right? And so, yeah.
No, I agree. Those, I mean, the mechanical fundamentals, and then, certainly the theory, understanding theory. Like I grew to appreciate that a lot more. Like grad school it up, just realizing like this is a whole other layer of patterns I could be like embedding, and it did make a lot of things a lot easier for me. I mean, I'm still
a lot.
I'm still kind of terrible at theory, but what I did manage to keep in my head has helped me a lot. So
yeah, it's just interesting because I remember being in like the theory classes, you know, like the lower level ones that, you know, you have to go through, and my classmates, you know, there were some classmates in there that were in there, like, you know, like the second time taking the class, like even someone was in there the third time taking it because they just couldn't pass it. And like here I'm like, this is like totally easy, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, this is like, to me it just seems so very elementary. And you know, but I kind of was like, you know, but I looked at them and I'm like, but they're really good musicians, like in their own right, you know, they're really good on their instrument. And so I just kind of realized that it's just, you know, like certain, I guess, you know, not everyone has like a mind for you know, I mean,
the mix of attributes that, because like I've seen this with jazz people, like I'm definitely not a jazz person, but they seem to know keys and chords so well, so deeply. I can't even fathom how to know it that well.
I know.
But that's their world. They function in that.
I know, that's like a whole other like area. Yeah, and I always have a great appreciation for things that other people can do really well that I can't. And that's one of them. Yeah, that and singing, because I can't sing very well at all.
Well, when I, depending on what I've been drinking, sometimes I think I can sing. You know, I guess it
depends on how inhibited you are, right?
Actually, that was well, I mean, college years that happens, but the a good lesson I learned was if you want to learn to manage your stage fright, start doing karaoke nights.
Oh yeah.
That started getting popular when I was in grad school. At least the grad program I went to Western Illinois for master's work, and frequently, especially I think my second year there, we were hitting the local places and getting up on stage doing the karaoke. I mean, I
If it works.
yeah, I mean, I was relatively uninhibited on stage by that point, but I can see how that would help somebody to kind of come out of your shell a little bit.
Yeah. I'm of the mind that if it works, do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
hey.
Oh man. So you mentioned you did your theory work. Do you do any kind of composing or arranging now?
No,
Not
no,
really.
no. I was kind of more into like the theory aspect of the degree because it was like a dual type, theory and composition. So I did like composing and stuff in college because I had to. Yeah, I did write a 12-tone fugue when I was in college, and I'm actually quite proud of. Um, with the tone, like whole tone row and everything. And but like it really wasn't like the part that I was really interested in. I think part of it too is that it's kind of difficult because I don't have perfect pitch. I wish I did. My daughter does. It's crazy. But I
Live out
found
your
it.
dreams through her now.
Well, I don't want to live vicariously, but um, but I find it kind of hard to write down melodies and stuff that I had going through my head, and I think if I had stayed with piano
Oh
and
yeah.
played piano better, it might have been easier. But also it wasn't really like something that I was really all that like interested or passionate about necessarily. I'd rather analyze a piece of music than compose a piece of music.
Yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. So
I've removed myself from either of those things for the most part, except if I need to understand what I'm playing. But I just, I was never, that was never my strong suit. Studying music was,
like the theory part was always kind of like it was like kind of like more like a struggle, like pulling teeth.
for me, yeah. I mean,
yeah, and that's for a lot of people, I think.
I think beyond kind of the basic, like, major, minor, and these are triads or whatever, like some of the rules of composing, maybe it's a problem with authority. I just hated having rules for things, like especially looking at things like contemporary music and popular music, where they just kind of seem to do what they want. And
yeah, but isn't that kind of the beautiful thing?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but in one world, I would get yelled at for doing what I want. In the other, like if it sounds good, could earn millions of dollars. I don't know. It was a disconnect that kind of bothered me. Like,
yeah, but I mean, but look at what Beethoven did. He kind of threw convention like out the window, and like he's like one of the most like famed composers of all time. And so I think the people who have broken the rules, are the ones that we remember.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's bad necessarily to be a rule breaker. I mean, because really, like, you learn like 4-part harmony, right? It's like, oh, Bach, but like, well, sometimes Bach used parallel octaves and fifths, and sometimes he cross voices and stuff. Yeah. I mean, those are all things that.
Didn't he create that whole tempering system in the first place?
What do you mean, well, he wrote like the Well-Tempered Clavier.
Yeah,
the whole
because before that, I mean, this is my not doing well in school department for music history, but I thought he I thought he came up with the like well tempering in the first place. So
Oh,
it's
you mean like equal temperament?
yeah. Wasn't that him? I can't remember.
I don't know who.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
whatever it
Um,
was, like that was, for him to do that whole work in that, by those proportions, it was completely different from what was before.
sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess.
I remember I wrote in undergraduate school for a music history paper. I wrote a paper on the history of tuning and temperament systems, and I learned like, wow. Yeah, I mean, and
There
this
was
was
a
like
lot
an
of
undergraduate school, so this is like 20 years ago.
yeah.
I'm not telling my age. And um, it, and I just remember getting the paperback and there was 100% on it, and the teacher wrote a note. He said, "Thanks for writing this. I learned quite a bit." And I was like, "All
There
right,
you go.
good. All right." I'm like, "Good," because I learned a lot too in researching and writing it. Yeah, that was for me. That was like fascinating, though.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing and like theory, like to me that like fascinates me, but also too, like I started college as an engineering major as well.
Hmm.
So you know so go figure.
I remember, yeah, Dr. Barrett mentioned something like that too with his background. He started as some kind of, I forget, some kind of science or something,
Mhm.
and then went into music. I think, yeah, for
Yeah,
some of us, you guys have that analytical type brain that seems to,
yeah, but but I have to be creative. I
yeah,
mean, that's why I decided not to go the engineering route, because I just felt like I felt like, yeah.
right. This doesn't quite fulfill the soul as much.
No, I didn't feel comfortable with it. It's just I was like, I have to be creative. And yeah, so it just wasn't for me. And I don't regret making that decision, because I don't think I would be happy.
That's good, and that's important too. Like, I think for people trying to craft their career, um, you, you have to consider your personal happiness and satisfaction.
Oh yeah,
Like, you,
for
you
sure.
what was it, the like all the music performance people I went to school with, I think they're going to be the next principal of the Chicago Symphony or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
look, maybe, like, if you talk to some of these people, unfortunately some of them,
quite miserable.
like, that's not like, it's drudgery to them because it's become a day job. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and that's true. But also too, like I think one thing that I've come to learn, and that I didn't really like think about in these terms when I was in college or younger, is that success looks different. There is no one way to measure success, right?
right. How
So,
can we? Because we're all different.
right, exactly. I used to think that, success would mean like I like win some like full-time job somewhere,
Mhm.
and that's when I'm going to be successful. But then like I realized that like I'm making a living doing what I love. I'm making music, and I get to work with these awesome kids, and that I really enjoy. I enjoy teaching, and I enjoy the kids. I enjoy getting to know them and seeing them learn and develop as musicians and as human beings. And to me, that's very satisfying.
Yeah.
And being able to do something like that, that's really satisfying, and make money at it and make a living, how can you not call that success?
Right.
You
That's
know?
certainly a better definition to me than some others. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because I think so many people like define success in terms of like there's always like this carrot dangling in front of them, like that Alan Watts clip. Do you know who Alan Watts was?
Yeah. I think I have
Philosopher.
one of his books on my shelf somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. And there's this one where he's talking about like success, you know, and it's like you climb through like all this, and you know, and it's like here's a kitty, go here kitty kitty kitty, you know. Here's the next thing, and then on to the next thing, you think, oh, I've arrived, and then you feel empty. You're like, well, yeah. Right. So I think success is how you define it, and there's no one way to say, oh, well, this is it, and then everything else is not. I think that's kind of narrow-minded.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's I agree.
Right.
And
I think it also sets people up for misery, and you know, and just dissatisfaction if they can't learn to, you know, figure out, you know, how to define success, or just, you know, seek out ways in order to be successful, or I don't know where I'm going with that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of get the direction. I think part of this, you know, this online show for me is for me personally to try to exercise some of that for my own career.
Yeah, of course.
And then also I want to be able to share with, you know, my peers in this field and whoever else might be watching, like there's other ways to be successful. Like let's broaden our scope. And you know, like the last episode I filmed, I was talking to another NIU friend, and he runs Instrument Barn in Huntley.
Yeah, Harry.
Yeah.
I just helped a student buy an instrument from him earlier this summer.
Nice.
Yeah.
The network closes. But yeah, talking to him was fascinating because he started off like, you know, we were in the studio together, and then he went to Army band, and then just couldn't be an Army band. So like, okay, what do I do now? And here he is with from what I can see is a successful music store, you know, and helping people with quality instruments that work well. You know, he really pushed that point home. Like it's got to work well, and you know,
and it has to fit them.
Yeah, but
the instrument has to fit the person, not the other way around.
The idea that there's all these things, if you kind of survey the territory and keep an open mind, like he seems you know, pleased to death to be running that place, you know, and I'm real pleased to see him doing it too.
Right. Yeah, there are other ways to be successful that do not involve you playing full time. So, yeah.
Nice. All right, let's see. Who do you consider some of your major influences? It could be for clarinet, or I don't know. There's a lot of directions that can go.
My major influences. I don't know. I mean, like as far, gosh, I'm trying to think like which direction I want to.
I mean, we are kind of shaped by a lot of important people at key times in our lives.
Yeah. Well, I'd say like probably one of like my biggest influences, like as far as like my clarinet playing and my teaching philosophy, is probably my undergraduate teacher, Mac Hinson.
Okay.
Like I learned so much from him, and like he's such a fantastic player. He went to Juilliard. Wow. And yeah, and studied with
Drucker?
No. It'll come to me. But anyway, but he's just such like a lovely person, and you know, and he could, you know, basically kind of tell me that, you know, this isn't good enough, go back, and you know, without making me feel like crud about myself, you know, and be, you know, encouraging, and show me the right way to play, you know, and actually like teach me how to play the clarinet, right? Not just, you know, oh, like, you know, like here's a rose etude, figure it out, you know. No, like he actually like taught me like how to do embouchure correctly, you know, like tongue position, you know, like the technical aspects, like how to actually physically play the clarinet, you know.
Was it Charlie Neidick?
No,
Now it's gonna bug me as I'm trying to think through who would have been there. That like
Joe Allard.
okay,
Yeah, he studied with Joe Allard. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, sorry, I knew it would come to me. But I mean, he was just so like instrumental in my development, and no pun intended there, in my development as a musician, but also like how I ended up being a teacher myself, because a lot of my teaching philosophy is based on what I learned from him. And, you know, of course, you know, like some of the things that I, you know, use in my teaching, I, you know, have gotten from, you know, from other teachers, and also things that, you know, I've just, you know, come up with and figured out on my own, right? Yeah. But a lot of what I do is because of how I was taught by Dr. Henson. Yeah. And how to just, you know, and how to, you know, just, you know, be a good person while doing it.
That's,
you know,
yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, because I never ever see any reason to be mean about anything or to make a student feel like crud because they're not doing something, you know, correct, or, you know.
Yeah,
yeah.
The way I've tried to communicate that in my studio is it's if you make a technical mistake, it's not a moral issue. Like,
no.
don't feel like morally bad because you played a wrong note. Like, it's just a mechanical thing. Like, we notice the problem, we fix it, you know, and then move on. Like, I've seen
you drop it like a hot potato. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny how, yeah, I've seen all sorts of reactions to that, and like there's no reason it has to be any, you know, anything different. At the same time, like, you know, you have to be honest with somebody, like, hey, that was not good, or like that was
right.
You know, this stuff was wrong.
Right. Right, because I'm not going to say something sounds good if it doesn't. Because first of all, I don't like blowing smoke, and secondly, it's really not helpful to the student because they know when it doesn't sound good. Usually, you know, hopefully they would know better. But it, you know, if they know it doesn't sound good, and I'm like, oh, that was fantastic, you know, then they're going to be like, she for real?
Yeah. Yeah, and kids, you know? I'm sure you've had similar experience, but like when kids detect that you're not being genuine, like they'll eat you alive.
Oh yeah, totally. Right. And then they won't respect you. You know, it's like I mean, it's nice to be liked by my students, but more than anything, you know, I you know, want them to respect me, you know. Yeah. Right. Like me or not, fine, but respect me. Right. You know, and respect what I have to say, right? But yeah, I mean, usually kind of going with what you were saying, like, it's not like a moral failure, you know, it's true, you know, but like I say, you know, well, like, okay, so you played a wrong note, like, you know, did the paint peel off the wall because of it? You know, like, did a kitten die somewhere because you played a wrong note? Yeah. I mean, no. So it's just sound. So just take note, move on.
Right.
You know, don't dwell on it. It's not worth it. Right. And sometimes, you know, and I always say too that, you know, mistakes, they're there because they're telling us something. You know, if you can extract what that mistake is telling you, then, you know, I think then you can learn from that, because mistakes are always, you know, they're telling you something.
That's a good way to put it. You know, I'm not sure. I can't remember how I've directed people to analyze their mistakes, but that's a nice way to direct it. What's it
telling you? Right. Sometimes it's just telling you that, like, maybe you need to, like, maybe like adjust something with your hand position, you know, because I notice a lot of times like students make mistakes or blips or whatever, not because they're necessarily playing wrong notes, but because of how they're posturing their hands, or, you know, or where their, you know, their fingers when they're up, if they go like this, you know, they hold their pinky out too far and they
Yeah.
you know, it's like, well, we're, you know, position your fingers like more evenly and not so far off, you know, so that you can, you know, go from like low A to A flat cleanly or something, you know.
The big
Yeah, no teacup pinkies. You know, it's fine when you're drinking tea, but not when you're playing the clarinet. Yeah. So, but sometimes just like little things like that, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
I agree. Like, I mean, most of the things I've had to correct with my students, it always boils down to some fundamentals,
Yeah.
and then the more like the more advanced they get, the
The more,
smaller the
yeah.
problem with fundamentals is. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Right.
my this is my opportunity to drop names now, but my time with the Cal Opperman, he was very microscopic with technique.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent a lot of time focusing on, you know, keeping that finger in a good position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Moving from this joint.
yeah, yeah, and then the points of contact. But yeah, it was like the more you worked on the fundamentals, the smaller those little adjustments became, until
Sure.
you know, for him, it's almost like watching a flute player. Like he wanted to see like very, very efficient fingers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I harp on my students about that too. You know, it's like keep the fingers curved, you know, minimize the movement. You don't have to move them nearly as much as you think you have to. And they're all like,
Yeah.
what? What? You know?
Or I have one student right now. He's in the stage of like, if I just press harder, maybe the note will come out better.
Oh no.
So it's like we're working on, like, it's precision, not power. Like, yeah,
Right. Yeah, I always tell my students, if you feel like you're like half killing yourself just to get stuff to work, you're doing something wrong. You know, like whether it's here or it's here, you know.
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like trying to get high notes out, for instance. Like some kids are like, you know, I'm like, no, stop.
The
No,
veins and
like,
strings
no,
popping out of your neck.
like, no, you do not muscle it. That's not how it works. Yeah, let's go over this again.
I enjoy talking to other teachers because it's kind of cathartic for me, because I know we've run into a lot of similar similar
Oh
things.
yeah, you know, it's universal. You know, I mean, I think, you know, the clarinet, knowing, you know, what it is, I find that a lot of my students like have the same common issues. I think I've yet to find one student who has had like an issue that no one else has had that I've never seen before.
Mm.
You know, they always seem to be, it's like, I always tell my kids, you know, it's like everyone like has strengths and weaknesses, or, you know, issues with learning this thing, right? And, you know, one person might have this, you know, bundle of strengths and this bundle of weaknesses, right? And another person might have, you know, this bundle and this bundle, but it's like a mixed bag for everybody. And but I think I've yet to see someone who has something that's so unique that I've never seen before. You know, but I've also been teaching for quite a long time.
I did have one. She didn't really go on to clarinet, but I had one girl ask me about learning a clarinet or even just a woodwind instrument, but she was like biologically missing a couple fingers.
Oh, that would
So
be hard.
it's like, well, I don't know that I can help you with like, yeah, I whatever it was, like she had maybe like the first three, and then was just missing the others.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, she'd be better off playing French horn or
Yeah,
something.
that's eventually she was
Yeah.
exploring brass and then
Mhm.
percussion. But
Percussion,
like like
woodwinds. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry, like they're mostly designed for people with standard anatomy.
Standard issue, right?
Yeah.
I know, but it's like, I know, yeah.
But
But you don't want to discourage, but
yeah,
maybe redirect the interest and, yeah, yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, it's,
yeah, that's
Mm.
but I agree. Other than that, most of the most of the time it's been kind of the same body of issues, and
Yeah. And I also say that, like playing music is a gift, and it's a pretty special thing because not everyone can do it. Not everyone has the mind to do it or even the opportunity. And it, just really enjoy the gift and the blessing that it really is. And if you really kind of look at it, this clarinet, it's just a stick with a bunch of holes drilled in it, and you're making it sing.
yeah,
So don't take it too seriously. You know,
yeah,
like don't get too down on yourself about it, because it is pretty freaking amazing. So that's kind of how my philosophy on it.
that's
Yeah.
a good one to have. Um, what's what's some repertoire that really moves you? What's some of the stuff that you really enjoy?
Oh, clarinet or just in general?
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, we're talking to clarinetists, but
Anything by
music
Brahms.
is music.
Anything by Brahms.
Hmm.
Oh, Brahms just speaks to me. You know, it just kind of like, ugh, it
Yeah.
just gets me right there. Um, Dvorak makes me smile.
Hmm.
Um, this like the folk harmony of folk melodies that he uses. Uh, it just makes me smile. It- you know, and I love the Beatles as well.
Yeah.
I hear the song Blackbird, I start crying. Like like I feel like the tingling in my eyes just thinking about that song. Like I have like actual like reactions
Well,
like to music.
that's how deeply that's how deeply music can affect us. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like so deep in your brain, and you can't help but have it connect to your body.
Yeah,
So
like I'm like fighting back tears just thinking
yeah,
about Blackbird.
you're gonna
Yeah,
make me
isn't
look
that
that song up
crazy?
again now.
Just thinking about it, it's like bringing me to tears almost.
Yeah,
I know. And it's like, why? It's like the emotion behind it. But that's just the crazy thing. I mean, because music is really just collection of pitches and sounds and frequencies, right? But there's so much emotion and meaning behind it. And that's in what we attribute to it, like as humans.
yeah,
Right. And it's just the idea and the feeling behind all those collections of pitches and frequencies and all of that create harmony and what we perceive as beauty and a feeling. I think that just fascinates me.
yeah. I
How we
mean,
can have such an emotional reaction to sound.
yeah, and
Is or
it
yeah.
can be beyond spoken language. One
Mhm.
of the one of the things I appreciate because across the world, it can you know you can have people who appreciate the same piece of music, the same piece of art, and maybe
Yeah.
some of the details are a little different in their culture versus ours, but you know
Mhm.
it is fascinating to see the kind of universal human response to good art.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And even, young children, they perceive it too.
Yeah.
Even like my kids, they have, favorites. My both my kids, they love Elton John.
Nice.
They ask me, Mama, can you play Yellow Brick Road? Or can you play Gray Seal? Or and or yeah, it's just really it's just a very human thing, and I think it's really amazing that I get to do this for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So you're already involved in a lot, living a pretty satisfying life, it sounds like. Uh, do you have any other goals in mind you plan to accomplish, artistically or professionally?
Um, well, I've kind of always wanted to form my own chamber group. And like I kind of like had the idea like in mind and everything, and then COVID happened, and I was just kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
survival.
Oh man.
So I think like when things open up more and we can actually like perform live and without having to worry about COVID, um, that's kind of like a goal, like an artistic goal of mine. Because I've like a lot of my friends are all musicians,
Right.
um, and I mean, who doesn't love chamber music? Oh my gosh,
Yeah. I that
right? And I
the
think it's kind of a way to kind of scratch my own itch too,
right.
you know, because
My
I love playing chamber music.
that's one of the, like, I have a taste for chamber music as well. Like when I went to grad school, I kind of
Mhm.
forced my program into doing some of that because they have what, like, ensemble requirements and things.
Yeah.
Look, if it's like three or more people, that's technically an ensemble, right? Like, do I have to play in band? Like, so I I'm not sure, but I think I might have upset some people by not joining band, for
Well,
some of those, because, like, when you're a grad student, they kind of expect you to play in whatever, like
mhm.
carry some weight in the ensembles, and it's like,
Yeah,
what?
they need the bodies, but at the same time, though, I mean, honestly, I would find playing in a woodwind quintet more artistically satisfying than playing in band.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
that band is not worthy in and of itself, because I have enjoyed that,
right.
you know.
Yeah, it's not a knock on that ensemble, but
No,
if I'm paying money for a degree program and a certain
right.
experience, like, I want to get what I want out of it.
It's true, right. And I don't think it should just be like this one size fits all type thing, because not everyone has the same, end goal
Yeah,
as well. It's everyone has different goals that they're after. My goals are not your goals necessarily,
right.
and fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think if like music programs can kind of see that more, I think that would really benefit students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine what creativity could come out of that if the environment were a little more open. I
Right,
mean, you
conducive to
still
it. Yeah.
still have to prepare them for what, like, kind of the standard opportunities that may be out there,
Of
like
course.
how an audition works or whatever. But yeah,
Hmm.
I
Right.
it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see the creativity unleashed even at that
Right.
level of learning.
And I think a lot of the music schools now are kind of, going toward that kind of more musical entrepreneurship type
Mm-hmm.
thing, which none of the schools that I went to did that or any of that.
Yeah, that
That was
wasn't the thing.
never discussed. That was never discussed, like how to actually make a living as a musician.
Right.
Never talked about it in any of the three universities I went to. It was never discussed, right? But I think that from what I hear, is that universities like music programs are kind of they're including that curricularly, or talking
Yeah.
about it, or talking about musical entrepreneurship, and I think that's really important because if you have a performance degree and all you know how to do is play when you graduate, well then what?
Yeah.
Then what?
If you don't nail that magic position somewhere, what
Right. And
what are
that's
you left with?
right. And that's kind of like where I kind of, like felt, you know, after I finished school. And, you know, thank goodness I, you know, like I found that I really, you know, found my niche like in like teaching and like performing like locally. You know, I mean, and I found that I really enjoyed teaching and I was good at it. You know, because if I hated it and I was miserable with it, then you know, I mean, it, it's, you know, like the whole orchestra thing, you know, it's great, you know, but if you can get the job, because for any one position that's open, there are like 50, 60
Yeah.
equally more qualified people than you.
Countless people out there who could jump
Right.
in.
Right, exactly. That's like, what is the expression? Too many Eskimos, not enough igloos,
Yeah.
right? It's true. It's yeah. I mean, there are not enough jobs like that for as many qualified people as there are. And these universities, they keep cranking out more and more qualified people every year, and the jobs aren't growing.
Yeah.
They're, I
Yeah.
mean,
It's some, if you want to do something with that skill set, you need to have the additional skill set of being able to spin it into an income. You know.
right, right, and not just, you know, rely on like, oh, I'm just going to win a job somewhere. You
Yeah.
know, the likelihood of that happening. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
if I won every audition that I took, I wouldn't be here. You know, I I'd be elsewhere. Yeah.
I
So
started seeing that at auditions that I was taking. At some point, I just like I wasn't seeing a lot of auditions, and I was getting a little tired of like working the
it
scene
gets
anymore.
tiresome, right?
But there
And
was it
expensive.
why I think Wyoming. I went out. There was an opening in Wyoming, and there were people all the way from New York, like New York City, and it was a regional orchestra, like, you know, handful of services a year. So these people were planning to commute from like literally across the other side of the country.
That's just crazy to me. Like, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, that's, I think that was the, I mean, every uh, every time I didn't make an audition, I was, you know, learned a little something, got a little more perspective. But that was the one. It was
Yeah.
like man, like this is the level of kind of desperation that I see, and additionally, some of the politics that can happen with some of these groups. Like we all found out later, like, oh, they were just waiting for this one particular player to respond. So like they had their audition, basically as a big kind of like show.
That is, that's not, that's not cool. Because that
Yeah,
is not fair to
but
all those people
it's
who
something
put their
I've
time and their
encountered.
money.
Yeah,
Make
yeah,
people spend money to travel all the way there, knowing
yeah,
that that's just really,
right. But I mean, it's something I've encountered more than once, and the
yeah, I don't,
buzz
that's
is
not
always,
right. I
yeah.
think
So
that that practice needs to go away.
yeah, I mean, thankfully, the playing I've gotten around here has been a little less um, um, less shenanigans, you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's not like, you know, it's not high stakes playing. I'm not competing for, you know, $150,000 a year job. It's
right.
just, can I play here? Can I play here slightly more regularly or a little less regularly?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And the way I look at it, you know, it's like you know, I get hired. Woo! If I can do it, I'll take it.
yeah,
And I'll play the part that they give me as best as I can.
right.
Woohoo! Be happy to be there. And you know, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't like drama. I don't like politics. I just want to play. Just
Yeah,
let me
we're
play.
artists. We create. Like, can't we just leave it at that? If you don't like how I sound on that day that you hear me, fine. Like, we'll just we'll
Mhm.
part ways. But yeah, it doesn't have to be rife with intrigue. You know.
No, nobody needs that. Like, who's got time for that? You know, and I think like the older I'm getting, like the less I'm willing to put up with stuff like that.
Agreed.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't need it. I don't have time for that. Got so much other stuff going on. I don't.
Yeah. Why encroach on your happiness if you don't have to?
Right. It's like, I don't have the bandwidth to, to even like think about dealing with, politics and things like that. I have so much already,
Right.
between like work and, kids and, and all that. And it just, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how are you doing on time? I know we've been talking.
I'm fine actually.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I had a previous interview go up to 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, part of it's like we've all been locked up from COVID. It's just kind of nice to talk to peers again about shop talk,
Mm-hmm.
So, but don't let me clog up your day if you need to get somewhere else. Do you have any comments or preferences about equipment? You probably work with a lot of kids having to upgrade or like, work from rentals to own or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. You mean
Anything
like
you care to
instruments,
comment?
mouthpieces, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever
Okay.
you want to talk about for that.
Yeah. So, like as far as like instruments and stuff, like I really like the Yamaha CSVR. Very good. Very good. The last several students that I've had try those against our 13s, every single one of them has picked a CSVR.
Mm.
And it wasn't even based on price. Also, like in like the lesser expensive range, like the below 2000 range, the Rossi Academy is a fantastic instrument.
I got to get my hands on that. I know Harry was talking about that the other day.
Yeah, I've had a couple of students get those, and most recently, that one student that I helped pick an instrument at Harry's shop, that's what she chose, was the Academy. Okay. Yeah, fantastic instrument, and just like for 1850, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a really good instrument. So highly recommend that. Also, like the Royal instruments are really good as well. I don't know if you know, I used to sell the Royal instruments. So I don't anymore. But they are very good instruments.
I wasn't sure about that. I saw a little bit about that a while back, and I lost track of a lot of things. But
yeah. So I used to sell them, and they're very good instruments. Very good instruments. In fact, my E flat clarinet I bought earlier this year. Yeah, I bought it earlier this year. I guess like January, February-ish. It's a Royal.
All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it plays great. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely need to get my hands on this. I've been so I've been so kind of disconnected from the industry part of things. Mm-hmm. Like I was kind of planning to go to the Clarinet Fest this year, but that
well, it didn't happen.
Yeah. Just because I haven't so I haven't really laid hands on a lot of the current generation of stuff that's out there. Yeah. And when I started looking, like things, like Selmer and Buffet, like these new clarinets were incredibly expensive to me. Like the price point just shot way up, and like God forbid I need a new instrument anytime soon, unless the show picks up a lot of sponsorships or something. But
I understand.
Totally. Pretty daunting to see the price point from the big brands.
Yeah, take a trip to Harry's shop and just try the instruments. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I warned him ahead of time I would pick some day to go harass him over there. So
yeah,
that'll probably be another video at some point.
Oh sure, yeah.
But yeah, well, I mean, he spoke very highly of those instruments as well, so definitely I need to try those.
They're
I
very
had been
good. Yeah.
thinking about the Yamahas because I
Mhm.
tried. I don't know. I think it was that same one I tried at another shop, and
Mhm.
it seemed pretty well built. I mean,
Mhm.
I've
The
been playing
TCR,
on the yeah yeah
really
yeah.
good. They're very good. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been playing on these old Selmer signatures now for a while,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of used to that. So
Yeah.
I'm told
Mhm.
even the new Selmers are not like they're not the same. You know, like whatever they've changed in the bores and things, like it's all different now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just need to reconnect with the industry and
Well, I
uh,
think that like, playing on, are they like vintage horns?
no, well, maybe now is
I guess it depends on what you consider to be vintage, right?
yeah, I've been
Yeah.
playing on them a while. They certainly stand a a little bit of attention from a tech, but um, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah. Well, whenever you play something new, it's always going to feel like tighter, because like when you're playing on instruments that are like more like well seasoned, I guess you can say, they kind of loosen up. And so like newer instruments, they're a little bit they're a little bit more like this, not stuffy, but like they're a little bit tighter,
yeah,
like and feel. And that takes a little getting used to, but they kind of relax and open up a little bit. Yeah. So I think
yeah.
that kind of takes some getting used to, like if you're looking at new instruments or trying new instruments. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. The good advice for students too, I guess. Right.
Well,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, but also you have to kind of go. You have to try, several, even of the same type. You have to try more than one of the same type, because they're like people. They all have their little personalities and quirks and whatnot.
yeah.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Now, do you have any comments on mouthpieces? Like, I know I've had a lot of students like you have to go from their kind of junky rental one to like their own kind of nicer mouthpiece to step up
Hmm.
to. Do you have any in particular that you like to recommend or?
Um, well, I like the Van Doren, the M13.
Hmm,
Sometimes the BD5, like if it voices high enough. I have had students switch to BD5 that's a little bit too stuffy and they end up with like that palate leak. Um,
yeah,
have issues with it that way. I personally on B flat clarinet, I find the BD5 to sound great, but really hard to play on. I find that I have to like work really hard, and
yeah,
like I can't do it. So for myself personally, I love my Greg Smith mouthpiece. Um, Probably my favorite mouthpiece that I've ever owned. And my second favorite mouthpiece that I've owned is my MOBA Legend mouthpiece.
mm,
Um, but usually like for students, I recommend like an M13, just because it's kind of more on that free blowing end. And uh, they can like kind of vary the resistance with reed strength.
yeah,
Uh, mhm. And generally, but you got to try a couple of them. Like instruments, you can't just take a mouthpiece off the shelf and go, oh, okay, this is it. Yeah, yeah. If they have five of them in stock, well, try all five because all five of them are not going to play the same. So and you got to try them for like for pitch and for how well they feel like they kind of hold you in, especially playing high notes and stuff, because some of them like just they're like and they're just like like a girdle of sound, it's
yeah,
like you can just blow and it just flies out. And like in other mouthpieces of the same mouthpiece, right, you play it and you feel like you have to walk in eggshells up in the upper register, and like that you want to stay away from.
yeah,
But how would you know what you're getting unless you actually try them back to back? And so usually like when students want to get equipment, Whenever I can, I always meet them at the store and go through it with them, because I
Yeah.
don't expect them to know what to look for, or, because that way at least I can kind of like, I'm not like a control freak or anything, anybody who knows me knows that I am not a control freak. But at least that way I can have like a little bit of like control over the process, or control
Yeah.
over what they get, just to make sure that they get something that's actually good.
Yeah.
Um,
Some reasonable guidance.
yeah, exactly. Because I don't expect them to know what to look for, or the parents either. I mean, because like you can Google stuff all day long,
Yeah.
but information is not knowledge. They're two very different things. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's an important distinction, especially in today's learning environment.
Yeah, I know. So many people think, oh, I got Google. Woohoo. Well,
Yeah.
you do, but
It's great until it's not.
it's not. Yeah. 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 Information is not knowledge. And I think not everyone necessarily recognizes that. But it's good when they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Do you have any other? This has been a great conversation so far.
Yeah.
Do you have any other big advice for students, like big general advice you might share for? I know there's, like I said, we've gone over a lot today, but
I would say don't ignore your fundamentals. I know that doing long tones, embouchure, scales, arpeggios, all that stuff, sometimes it can seem kind of like, oh my God, right? Just do it, because it really benefits everything. And it's about process. If you're only focused on the end result, you're going to be miserable. You have to really learn to enjoy and embrace and love the process of everything. And also, like, if you're really focused on process and you know how you're going to get there, then you're going to be able to get there time and time and again, right? So that you can replicate that result, right? So it's like getting like altissimo note or something like that. Okay, great, you got it, but how'd you do it? Can you do it again? Right? Was it just an accident? Or do you actually know how you did it? So it's not just what you do, but it's how you do it. And especially like the whole long tone thing, like I kind of think of it as sort of like a meditation that I do, like when I practice, because I start with long tones when I practice personally. And I love the Time for Tone book, the Wasserman Margolis book, Time for Tone.
okay.
And also the Stubbins, the Essentials for Technical Dexterity book.
Oh, I don't know if I know that.
Oh, it's fantastic. I have a PDF. I can send it to you. For me, like long tones are like, it's like meditating, and like I just come to like and really enjoy it, and just enjoy like just that, the whole thing, and I just kind of get into that space.
Yeah.
Just listen to that sound and just feel the vibrations, in my fingers and everything, and just, it's just like meditation, and for me it just sets the stage. And I think if students can learn to embrace that and slow down, and allow themselves to slow down, I think that will really benefit them. Yeah, I mean, it's benefited me. So, yeah. I don't tell my students to do things I don't do myself or haven't done myself.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not in the business of just giving them busy work for the sake of giving them stuff to do. There's always a point. So, because
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be effective because they're paying me to teach them how to,
Right.
make
That's
this, shrieking twig sing, right? And, I don't want to waste anyone's time. And, not my own either.
Right.
But yeah, embrace the tedium, and embrace and enjoy and love the process.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. Um, what else do you do? That we've talked a lot about your music life. What
Mm-hmm.
what else do you enjoy doing?
Well, I really I love yoga and Pilates, exercises. Well, I'm a mom, so that takes up a lot of my time.
That's a whole world
Yeah.
of other stuff.
Yeah, and I have a side gig, skincare business, like a side business. And yeah, actually, I love reading too. I read whenever I can.
Nice.
Um,
Anything in
yeah.
particular you're into right now?
I really love, I know it sounds like kind of corny probably, but I love personal development. It- you know, um, I just find that it really helps to kind of like shape the way I see things in a good way.
Hmm.
And helps me to kind of gain perspective, and uh, it just helping me to just kind of just function in the world the best that I can. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. Oh man, we've been through quite a lot of stuff. This is good.
Good.
If you were if you want, send me the titles and links of all the stuff that you want. I'll get it all in the show notes
Oh,
uh,
sure.
for people's reference.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Send me an email afterward to remind me, because otherwise
Yeah.
I'll forget.
Yeah.
I know myself.
I'll follow up about that.
Okay.
What's something that you used to believe that you don't believe now? It's kind of it sounds like a heavier question than it needs to be.
Yeah, I guess we've probably been over it already, like the whole like success thing, like is defined, because I used to think like, oh, I'll be successful like when I get this, full-time playing job, or, or I, get this audition or whatever. And like, I kind of come to realize that that's just like a big fat lie that I was believing and kept telling myself, because, I kind of inferred that externally and internalized it. But now I realize that it's just not true. I don't believe that anymore. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good.
So,
That's a big lesson to learn. But
success
good.
is how you define it. It depends on the parameters in which you're defining it. Mhm.
Nice. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you yet?
I don't know. What do you want for Christmas?
What do I want for Christmas?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind my business picking up a little more steam, but
Yeah. Wouldn't we all?
yeah, that's as far as stuff. Like if I can build more financial success, then I can get whatever stuff I feel like. It doesn't.
Yeah, I know.
Prioritize my desires here.
That's like one of the hard things, is like prioritizing everything and not letting the de rigueur, the everyday
Yeah.
stuff get in the way. I think that's something I struggle with myself.
Oh,
I think we all do to an extent. Yeah.
I want to go back just a little bit. Um, you mentioned the you want to put together a chamber group
Mm-hmm.
when everything's a little more open.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular instrumentation in mind already, or just
Um,
like a
Not
general?
particularly. I mean, like kind of like a general thing, and then, choosing repertoire accordingly, like I don't think it'd be like kind of the thing like where everyone would have to be involved in every single piece, because that just kind of really limits everything,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I mean, I yeah, like I said, like I, kind of like was like kind of like the wheels were turning, and I even kind of came up with like a name for it and everything. And then COVID happened and it was just like, pause, survival mode, quarantine.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so like honestly, I haven't really put too much more thought into it since, you know. But yeah, now that you kind of mentioned it, kind of like, oh, this thing's going to be over with at some point,
Yeah. Some point.
Yeah, I mean, pandemics don't last forever, because viruses do fizzle out. It's not doing it yet, but it will. It's just a matter of when, not if. But yeah, kind of put the bug in my ear again.
There you go.
Good. Thanks, Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll look forward to whatever that becomes when the time is right.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
So, let's see. You're here in the Chicago suburbs. Is there any people want to get a hold of you? Is there any particular way, contact info you want to put out there?
Just my first and last name at gmail.com.
Okay.
Garbar@gmail.com.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time again. I know it's been, I don't even know now, north of an hour. I don't know. Whatever. It's been a great conversation. Hopefully at some point we can do this kind of thing in person and actually interact with our colleagues again.
Yeah. Make some duets.
So, but again, thank you for making the time. I'll have this up, and then whatever info will be in the show notes. All the resources we talked about. We'll put your contact info if you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I don't, the tens of people that watch me right now.
All those clarinet weirdos out there,
But yeah, no. But yeah, great talking. I there's a lot in here for the audience, and I appreciate you taking the time. So
hey, anytime, Frank. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Sure.
Yeah, all right. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I'll see you soon.
All right, take care.